You ever feel like you're just drowning in headlines, but not really grasping what's actually important?
All the time. It's that feeling of information overload, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's why we do this. Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through that noise, we look at a whole range of sources, and, well, we bring you the key insights.
Yep. The goal is to help you stay informed without spending hours doing it yourself. Think of this as your curated briefing.
Okay, so today we're digging into a collection of recent global and economic news. We've got stuff from the FT, Bloomberg, Reuters, the Australian New York Times, a whole mix.
That's right. And our mission really is to piece together a clear picture of what's happening. We're looking at major global events, economic shifts, and that ever-present tech competition.
Sounds good. So we'll start with the international political scene, then pivot to some pretty significant trade and economic news, and finally touch on those tech rivalries.
Okay, let's jump in. The international political landscape first. There's quite a bit going on. Canada, Australia, and also India, Pakistan.
Right, Canada. They've got an election Monday, but things took a really tragic turn in Vancouver.
Yeah, that incident during the Lapu Day celebration, just awful. A driver hitting the crowd, 11 people killed.
Horrible. And Prime Minister Carney, who was actually leading in the polls, he suspended his campaign for the final day, understandably.
Absolutely. His opponent, Poiliev, offered condolences, of course.
Yeah.
But he seems to be struggling a bit, doesn't he? That connection to Trump.
It really does seem to be a liability for him in Canada. Even getting endorsements from people like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, it just hasn't translated into a big boost, it seems.
Well, it's interesting, right, that Trump association. While Canada has conservative voices, there's often a desire to differentiate from U.S. politics. So maybe those kinds of endorsements just don't land the same way.
Good point. Okay, let's shift down under to Australia. Also, election dynamics there. The final debate between Albanese and Dutton sounds like it highlighted some clear differences.
Very clear, especially in China. You had Dutton calling China Australia's biggest threat.
Whereas Albanese used the term influence. That's quite a different framing.
It really is. It signals two pretty distinct strategic outlooks.
Mm-hmm.
And Albanese's Labour Party, they also had to deal with questions about um, whether they knew beforehand about Russia wanting to use Indonesian airfields.
Right, that controversy.
Yeah.
So how are the polls looking?
Well, the latest news poll still has Labour ahead. But what's maybe more telling is this significant chunk of voters, especially women, who seem unconvinced about Dutton being ready to govern.
That kind of doubt, that voter perception, could be really decisive come polling day. It speaks volumes about what people are looking for in a leader right now.
It certainly does, especially with, all the global uncertainty. Now, moving to a region with more immediate security flashes, Kashmir, India, and Pakistan.
Still tense there.
Yeah, ongoing exchanges of fire.
Yeah.
And India is pointing the finger at Pakistan,
Yeah.
accusing them of backing cross-border terrorism.
Which Pakistan denies, I assume.
Predictably, yes. They deny it, and are actually calling for an impartial investigation into that recent attack where Indian tourists were killed.
It's just such a dangerous flashpoint. And now India has suspended the Indus Waters Treaty. That sounds serious.
It's huge. For anyone not familiar, that treaty is incredibly important for Pakistan. It guarantees water for something like, 80% of their agricultural land?
Like 80%. Wow.
Yeah, and India is saying the suspension stays until Pakistan stops supporting the cross-border terrorism.
Yeah.
Incredibly stops it.
So the potential fallout for Pakistan, it's massive, isn't it? Not just farming, but maybe electricity, the whole economy.
Exactly. It's a massive lever India's pulling there. Huge potential impact. It's a major diplomatic and economic tool being deployed.
Okay, let's pivot then to trade and economics. Lots happening, seems interconnected too. U.S.-China is always front and center. Bit of confusion about talks between Trump and Xi Jinping.
Yeah, some mixed signals there. Trump claimed talks were happening, but then Beijing came out and flatly denied it.
What does that tell us? Maybe just noise or something about the state of communication?
Could be either, really. Adds another layer of uncertainty. And then you had Secretary Besson sort of sidestepping whether the talks happened while also defending the administration's economic policies.
Right. And meanwhile, Trump's approval ratings on the economy and tariffs, they're not exactly stellar according to recent polls.
Correct. And it's not just China. The U.S. is also looking at potentially restricting livestock imports from Mexico. Screwworm concerns, apparently.
Screwworms, okay. And there was also that really concerning report about U.S. citizen children being deported along with their undocumented mothers.
Yes, a deeply troubling situation. Plus, Secretary Rubio mentioned the administration needs to decide soon on the future of Ukraine peace talks. So lots of moving parts on the U.S. policy front.
Definitely. And that feeds into the tech rivalry too, right? Huawei's new AI chip.
Ah, yes, the Ascend 910D. They're getting ready to test it. This is their big play against NVIDIA's high-end chips.
And it's largely because the U.S. restricted exports of those advanced chips to China.
Precisely. It's forcing their hand, in a way, or accelerating their own development, depending on how you look at it.
And they're expecting to ship a lot of these.
Reports say around 800,000 units, mostly to state-owned telcos and private AI developers in China.
It really shows how Chinese tech is trying to, well, innovate around the restrictions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and you see the ripple effects, broader U.S.-China tech tensions, and for companies generally, rising operational costs.
Speaking of rising costs, Shein, the fast fashion giant. Sounds like U.S. customers are seeing some sticker shock.
Oh yeah, significant price hikes in the U.S. Some reports mentioned increases of like hundreds of % on certain items across beauty, clothing, home goods.
Wow, up to 377% on some things? That's staggering. What's driving that?
It seems to be mainly anticipation of new U.S. tariffs, specifically targeting those small parcels coming in from China and Hong Kong.
Ah, the end of that de minimis loophole for goods under $800.
Exactly. That's going away, and postal fees are also going up. Interestingly, prices in the UK seem pretty stable.
So it really points to a direct response to U.S. policy changes. American consumers are going to feel that directly.
Almost certainly. Okay, let's hop back to Australia for a moment. The ASX, their main stock exchange, they're reviewing rules around M&A approvals.
Yeah, this follows that James Hardie takeover of ASX. Remember, that $14 billion deal went through without a shareholder vote.
Right, and that did not go down well with some big players. Super funds, asset managers, they weren't happy.
I bet. Big names like Australian Super, UniSuper, they apparently complained directly to the ASX. Even the treasurer, Chalmers, got involved.
It really highlights that push from big investors.
Mhm.
They want more say, especially on these massive deals. So the ASX is dusting off its 2017 rulebook, basically.
Shows the power balance shifting a bit, maybe, between boards and shareholders. Staying with corporate news, Toyota. Something about a potential investment in Toyota Industries.
Yeah, Toyota Motor exploring maybe taking a partial stake in a buyout of Toyota Industries, which is a key supplier for them. This came after reports hinted at a big deal brewing.
But Toyota Industries is saying no formal proposal yet.
Correct. They denied getting a specific proposal from the chairman or the group, but they did confirm they're looking at, quote, various funding options.
Okay, so maybe something's cooking, even if it's not formal. Could be a big strategic move within that whole Toyota network. Definitely one to watch.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that covers the main points, but there was a lot of other stuff floating around in the sources too, wasn't there? Just quick hits, maybe.
Yeah, a fair bit. We're expecting that ComSec State of the States report in Australia soon. China's also got a press conference scheduled on economic policy markets. We'll be watching that.
We already mentioned the investor backlash on James Hardie's DA. Oh, and upcoming Aussie inflation data could still sway some votes right at the end.
Yep. On tech, Adobe is still working on fighting deep fakes, but admits good solutions are a ways off. Ongoing worries about Trump's trade stance hurting global alliances.
Right. And Phoebe Gates, Bill Gates' daughter, launching a fashion startup. Saw that. Aussie medtech startups worried about U.S. tariffs might relocate.
Brookfield might sell Latrobe Financial. Feed's Eye bought Demist. China actually exempted some U.S. imports from tariffs. Interesting wrinkle.
Nova's seeking cash for build-to-rent projects. Chris McKay's wealth reportedly way up. Facebook's Aussie revenue up, but lots paid out in service fees.
Keppel Infrastructure doing well. Gigacom expanding. Apple looking more seriously at shifting some production to India.
Concerns about Chipotle's U.S. growth. Potential risk for Guzman y Gomez. Profiro had layoffs despite recent funding. Value investing making a comeback. Maybe.
Legal issues for billionaire heir Tim Roberts and also for Tesla's chair Robin Denholm. Minerals Council advisor seconded to Dutton's campaign.
Western United Stadium project in financial trouble. Huawei showing resilience despite sanctions. Norway doing Arctic military tests.
Bitcher still trying to buy PointsBet. Talk about Trump's policies hitting Ivy League endowments. Big tech's facing earnings tests soon.
TikTok planning e-commerce launch in Japan. Pirelli trying to reduce Sinochem's governance influence. Union efforts at Google DeepMind UK.
Warnings of a potential exodus from U.S. markets over Trump economic policy fears. Leadership challenges at Herbert Smith Freehills. Nanosonics CEO warning about U.S. tariffs hurting medtech startups.
Software being developed for AI chatbot optimization for brands. Perpetual hiring advisors after ord-minute moves. Okay, wow.
Yeah, see? A lot going on across the board.
Okay, so let's try and pull that all together then. What's the big picture from this deep dive?
Well, I think it paints a picture of a really uh, interconnected and complex global landscape, doesn't it? You've got these
Mhm.
political shifts happening in places like Canada and Australia.
Right, alongside these major economic adjustments, largely driven by U.S. policy decisions like the tariffs and the tech restrictions impacting China.
Exactly. And then you have those simmering geopolitical tensions like we discussed with India and Pakistan over Kashmir. It all ties together.
So the goal here was to give you, the listener, a kind of consolidated view, to connect those dots without you having to read dozens of articles.
Precisely. Save you time, give you the key takeaways, and hopefully highlight just how linked everything is. An election outcome here, a trade policy there, a tech development somewhere else. It all ripples.
Which leads us nicely to a final thought for you to chew on. Given everything we've discussed today, this whole complex web of events, what single development do you think might have the biggest, most far-reaching impact over the next year or so?
That's a tough one. Is it the U.S.-China dynamic? The outcome of these elections? The water situation in South Asia? Something else entirely?
Yeah, lots to consider there. Think about those ripple effects across economies, politics, technology. It's definitely something worth mulling over.
Indeed it is. And look, staying informed, it's an ongoing thing, right? These stories don't stand still.
Absolutely. We'll keep tracking them and be back with more deep dives to help make sense of it all.